Hello, everyone. Welcome to my first ever LinkedIn Live. For all you language coaches and education professionals out there, my name is Anish Dea, founder of On the Spot Language, and I am very honored and excited to be able to bring on board here two of my favorite language coaches and people in the education space, Miss Gabriella Kovac and also Miss Carrie McKinnon. And it's my honor to first bring on Carrie as Gabriella makes her way on screen here. Welcome, Carrie.
Hello, hello.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join me for this conversation. This is very exciting.
Yeah, for us too. Very happy to be here.
Yeah. As we wait for the lovely Gabriella to show up, I'm hoping first, maybe why don't we just jump into a little bit about yourself as a language coach, how maybe we first met, and then we'll wait for Gabriella to pop in.
Yeah, sure. Okay, great. Well, my name is Carrie McKinnon. I'm the co-founder of the International Language Coaching Association. I have been in the language professional community for over 15 years now. I'm a linguist and an entrepreneur. And after founding and running a language school in Casablanca, Morocco for many years, I really kind of started identifying as a language coach, right? And that's why we'll talk a little bit more about this, but really it all boils down to I knew that the students and learners, I should say learners because they were, adults, very successful professionals that I was working with. I knew that what I was doing with them was way outside the scope of anything that I had been ever taught to do as a language teacher. And so I just started identifying a little bit differently. And I think it was actually in that space where I was really trying to assimilate and put things together in my head that you and I met, Anish, online also, because it became this kind of like, I don't know. It still is a very exciting thing to be a language coach on LinkedIn, for example, because there are so many people that are so passionate and driven about this movement. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Hi, Gabriella.
Welcome, Gabriella.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
We were just talking a little bit about Carrie's journey into language coaching, how like we've all kind of just considered ourselves language coaches before this was where it is now. And then it's an evolution of this new paradigm of language teaching and incorporating language coaching into our classrooms, or in my case, into the real world. And I'll never forget how we met, Carrie, and is your website, when all the good stuff you were doing in Morocco, was like, you had this picture of someone diving.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of immersion. And I'm like, yes, I love this person. She gets it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had a little introduction with Carrie, Gabriella, and there's a lot to cover today. And I'm super excited to talk about the conference in July and get into all that. And let's just start a little bit about yourself, Gabriella. Be a quick summary of how you and Carrie met. And why did you both or why did you found the International Language Coaching Association? Welcome.
Okay, so first of all, super excited to be here, and thank you for everyone who's listening. Thank you, Anish, for inviting us. Hi, Carrie, nice to see you again. And where do we start? Okay, so it all started with this idea of the need to reach out. So right from the beginning, we talked about this, I think somewhere else also with Carrie, that it's so important that language coaching right from the very beginning was something which both of us actually saw as bridging across, like not just miles, but thousands of miles or kilometers or whatever. And we just kind of hit it off from the beginning. So we met and we just started talking, I think, in breaks and here and there, wherever we could. And we kind of found this very, very, very strong kind of trust and belief in what language coaching stands for, what you can reach through working with a coaching mindset in the classroom, outside the classroom, wherever you are, wherever you're doing your teaching things. And we just clicked, and we found that we both see language coaching as something definitely transcending that general belief that, you know, the traditional way that you do teaching. It's just something beyond that. And what I always emphasize is that it's not that language coaching is better than teaching, but it can add to it. It can add a dimension. It can complement it, supplement it, whatever words you want to be using. So it's giving something extra to it. What I say, it's value-added teaching. If you've got the coaching mindset with you, accompanying you on that journey. And that's what we found with Carrie, that we're both actually doing it. And so we kind of, you know, joined forces, and that's how ILCA began. When was that? 2019, October something, around the middle of October, something like that. And we've been going strong since then. And I think the primary aim of ILCA, the mission, is to spread the word about language coaching. So what it means for us, what it means for our learners, how we can learn so much. I just read that from Martin, I think, one of our board members, that he learned so much when he asked his learners what they need, what they want, and how they see him as a coach. You know, so there's this consistency of reflecting, asking your learners to reflect. And that's a pretty big thing. And I think that's one of the strongest pillars of language coaching, that you do focus on reflection quite a lot. So you create much deeper awareness around the learning process. And I'm going to shut up now. I've been talking to you. So.
It's interesting, Gabriella, when you're talking, and I'm sure other language coaches out there, I feel like you're just speaking my language. I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. And when you talk about value-added teaching, it just makes so much sense when you say it like that. It's like, no, not one's better than the other. You know, it's value-added here. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Carrie?
Well, in terms of our mission, I'll say the idea with ILCA, and one of our core values, has always been a community at the center of it. You know, and I would say by those terms, if we're measuring what we've done so far, we've been incredibly successful, because we have developed not just our own professional networks, like as individuals and professionals, but we have created a community. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback, but audio-wise, we've created a community, ILCA, that has and is and continues to be the central point, and the place that you have people that are self-identifying as language coaches, and they go out there and they're searching to find a home, if you will, searching to find a place to land, to continue to develop as professionals, to find out what is language coaching, what is this thing that I'm calling myself. And so it's a place for people to come and upskill and find other like-minded people and get the support as well as guidance that they need on their journey to becoming a language coach.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Carrie, because it means the world to me, number one, to have, I almost feel like there's this wall of support around myself as a language coach or as an edupreneur, to say, oh, ILCA has your back, you know, and there's this supportive community, you know. And I remember, you know, when Judy Thompson and I were hosting the Disruptive Education Conference, and I I met Carrie online, and, you know, and I'm like, Judy, you've got to meet. And then we had these conversations of, well, what is language coaching? How do we identify as language coaches? And then from there, you guys, you know, having your founding board members and growing that community has been very impressive. And it's only been 3 years? 3 years now?
Right. Well, 2.5.
2.5 years, almost 3 years. And, you know, in that time, the community is just growing. And I think, like you said, Carrie, it's about having like-minded people who want to support each other. And, you know, like Gabriella was saying, it's just this constant support that you feel around growing the industry.
Mhm.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
really getting the word out there of what are we doing. And I know Gabriella's pushing as hard as she can to get into schools and organizations and do interviews and say, hey, this is language coaching, everyone. And I'm very excited also to eventually dive into the book that Gabriella will hopefully be able to tell us a little bit about, the manual, which I'm very excited, the first of its kind. So we'll get into that as well. Speaking of the community and members, who would you say is an atypical ILCA member, Gabriella?
Atypical as in
Atypical.
non-typical.
That's it.
Okay. So, well, I think they're all, because everybody is coming from very diverse backgrounds. So I couldn't identify someone who is a typical ILCA member. So I kind of, subvert that. No, that's a good question. I've been thinking about that lately, and what I see is that actually the people who join ILCA as a board member, I don't know whether that's what the question refers to. So is it board member or just somebody who joins ILCA as a member, regular member?
I would think member. Carrie, what do you think? That's the idea of that.
I think the way the question is phrased has thrown us a little bit. As an atypical member, like people that are not going to be drawn to ILCA are people that are not really open to evolving in what they're doing, right? People that are very rule bound and, let's say, like they're a language professional and they're grammar bound, that kind of thing. Because ILCA at its core and in our DNA really is about, like I said, catching this. The phrase that I always use is organic practitioner-led movement. Any media you hear me go to talking about those words together, because it best describes what we are doing and how we started and why we exist, right? It's organic, meaning many people are just identifying like this themselves, right? It's not necessarily one big thing driving this whole, it's education is changing. The learning ecosystem has evolved for people to be, language learners to have access to self-learning tools like they never have before. Communication has become front and center. So there's all these beautiful elements and evolution of education, and coaching concepts in education map really well into that space. For us as language professionals, that's what we've tried to do with ILCA. And so organic practitioner-led movement is exactly what we're doing. So the people that come to us normally are the polyglots and the empaths and the people that are really in the languages space because they like connecting. Their mission driven, if you will, mission oriented. They really want to put their learners and their learner needs front and center, as opposed to, I'm going to hang on so tight to everything that I was taught about teaching and have it like so structured, because you do kind of have to move away from, you have to undo. There's an unschooling in language coaching. There's an unschooling process for the practitioner. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing. That makes so much sense. Even just with our own learners sometimes and how they've been taught their whole lives, there's a lot of unschooling that has to go on there, let alone for educators.
There really is. So for the learners, this is something we work with everyone that comes to ILCA as well, is that it's a shared responsibility. And not only are you having to unschool yourself and your own like core beliefs about content and structure in a language learning session, if you will, you're also having to address the learner expectations on you and get very clear and very good at communicating around those things. Because expectations can, when you talk about language coaching, expectations become very heavy. Expectations on self, expectations on the learner, and the learner's expectations on you as a language coach.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So we talked about this being timely, for widening the professional scope of language professionals. So what does make it timely now more
Okay.
than ever?
Right, now more than ever, I think I'll take that one, or at least a part of it. Okay.
Go for it.
I kind of didn't get the previous ones. I'll try this one.
I'd throw you off
Anyway, so I think that the fact that it's such a current theme now is, I mean, if we just do the maths, if you had checked how many language coaches were on LinkedIn a couple of years ago and how many you have now, there's just this I don't know, incredible growth. So, and we're talking about maybe tens of thousands of professionals here who call themselves language coaches. And I'm saying this kind of awkward expression I'm using, call themselves language coaches, because in our experience, and I think Carrie can, kind of help me with a nod or something, that, it turns out quite often people who turn to us and they say, well, they're already language coaching. And we get into the theme a little bit, we do our training, whatever, and it turns out, well, it's actually, it's like something very specialized, very personalized, but it's training. It's not coaching. And to understand the difference. So we often start with explaining what the difference between coaching, teaching, training is. And then there are a few oohs and ahs. And, so there's this kind of, wow, I didn't think about it in that, that sort of perspective. So I think clarification is very, very much something on the agenda for language coaching as a discipline as such. So just because there are so many language coaches around doesn't necessarily mean that everything is, totally clear and everybody is on the same page about what they mean by language coaching. So there are a lot of different definitions running around, online, offline, everywhere. So which is great. I love that. So it's a very nice mix, but that doesn't necessarily add to the professional approach to a certain discipline, if we want to call it that. And I think that calls for something, either as I went ahead and almost died, but I actually went through it and wrote the book. And it also means that you need to have events, you need to have interviews, you have to have conversations, articles, whatever, to once again to spread the message of what language coaching is. So the timeliness is to clarify and also to bring these people together and create something even more, looking for the right word, even more diverse, but not in a kind of let's just mix things together and see what comes out of it sort of way, but really checking the very best ingredients and bringing something really amazing to everyone, so that the definition becomes something which is on the same page for everyone, and that's what we mean by language coaching. So I think that's one of the things. The other thing, of course, is a number of factors coming from past 2 years of COVID, past 20 years, 25 years of internet usage, of a lot of things which are happening online, offline, emotionally, socially. So I'm not going to go into huge big detail, but so lots of things which are, as you mentioned, that conference where you met Judy, this disruption. So there's a paradigm shift happening in education. Teachers feel it, students feel it. I'm just creating a training video for my Hungarian teachers that might be interested in it. And I was just thinking about what is it that has changed? And so there are just so many factors which, like, if you're looking at a puzzle, you remove this, you remove that, you remove, and finally you've kind of got little bits and pieces still there, but you can barely, identify what the big picture is. And that's education today. And I think that's quite frightening. And also that people are dealing with a lot of, mental, social, well-being, etc. issues. And coaching is something, because it starts with the learner in mind, and it's actually very much learner-led, which is different to communicative language teaching. It is all about the learner understanding who they are as learners. So learning to identify with themselves, their roles, their responsibilities, their abilities and skills, their strengths, and also being very clear and being guided in the coaching process on what their goals are and how they can reach them. So to bring all this out in a process, it's just, as I said, it's adding value to the teaching that you are also doing. So the two can go parallel, and they're not contradictory at all. And I think it's just very timely, because learners feel the need to be able to identify at a deeper level with what's going on for them. So it's not enough, okay, I'll just chuck you this PDF, or I'll give you websites and you do that, and that's, wow, that's so modern, that's so no, it's not. It's just, a different format, but that's not going to be a modern take on new sort of education. Okay.
It's fascinating, Gabriella, that you mentioned all that, and I'm sure, Carrie, you've had these kind of moments. So I run these trial lessons with potential students in my business, and then they're so used to doing these teaching trial lessons, and I give them a coaching trial lesson. I said, and by the end of the coaching trial lesson, they're like, they're either crying, or they're sharing these deep emotional feelings, or they're like, I actually feel for the first time someone's listening to me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and thank you both for really, bringing this all out there, and especially with your handbook, Gabriella. It's going to be such a helpful resource for everyone to have on their shelves to refer to. It's going to be, if you don't mind me just quickly popping this up.
Price
you can, no, sorry, yeah, you can. I'm sure Gabriella might give you a discount code there, but I'm not sure. But yeah, this coaching handbook is going to be like the Bible for any teachers, educators to have on their shelves, just a reference, and people to share their, also, the stories that have come out of it from other language coaches, including myself.
Yes.
So
both
you.
of you are in it, so
yes,
yeah,
we're both in there.
Surprise there. Yeah.
And so it's, I just wanted to give a little personal opinion on how it's affected me and how I've approached my business as well. So I guess we've kind of talked about this. It's not really, is it really preferred over language teaching for some learners, do you find? Or have you found that? Or is it like...
I would reframe that question from
Sure.
really, for me, it's not about juxtaposing language teaching and language coaching, but rather how language coaching can complement language learning, right? So we focus on ultimately helping learners by helping language professionals to upskill in coaching that is specific to a language acquisition context, right? So that's our end goal, is helping the learner. So it complements language learning. Now, language teaching, I would say, my philosophy has always been, whatever it takes to help the learner. And that's why I'm trying to reframe that question. Because to me, language teaching is like the way that I was taught to teach. I had to let go of a long, long time ago to successfally help the learners that I was working with. Right. So, and it's not to say anything bad about language teaching, but one of the whole reasons we exist is because the learner has changed. And as Gabriella was referring to, there's like all these elements, all these parts of the puzzle. There's an entire learning ecosystem. There are new generations now, and like, unfortunately, in a lot of the language teacher training, these differences are not necessarily reflected yet, which is another reason why we exist and why we have our, field program. We've got 4 core modules that language professionals can work their way through to address every single part of what it would take for them to be really language coaching out there. And like I said, again, uniquely applying coaching concepts to a language acquisition context. Like I'm using a lot of big fancy words, and I'm not meaning to like sound that way. It's just that those are the right words.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep. Yep.
That's all it is about. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I think teacher training in many aspects has evolved amazingly. That's great. Obviously, all the research going into, you know, motivation, applied linguistics, all the details. But I'm still seeing that missing link of connecting what's going on for the learner and how can the teacher tap into that little segment.
Yeah,
is still something which is under researched, or the needs of today's learners are still somehow, you know, narrowly missed. So we're almost there. We're pretty good. If I just finished Celta Delta, whatever, I'd still be pretty good. But there's still just that little bit, like that much missing, and you just need something. And for us, obviously at ILCA, we think that is going to be that missing link, which you can tap into, and you're going to get those emotions. You're going to get that very deep understanding and alignment with the language learner as a language professional. And I can see Paul has a question there.
Yeah, feel free to address as I pop them up if you don't mind.
Yeah, okay, sure. So thank you, Paul. So how are professional standards for coaching established? Okay, very good. Now, primarily there are around four or five big coaching organizations globally, which are considered to be the top-notch organizations for anyone who wants to learn about coaching. They address coaching as a profession in general, which is a great thing. That's how I got into coaching. And a lot of professional coaches started by doing courses, trainings with these organizations. And I'm not going to be saying any names. You can look them up, and that's fine. One disadvantage of these is, well, they're pretty cash hungry. I mean, come on. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands. On the other hand, they are going to be focused primarily on generally business coaching. That's the huge big chunk. And then you've got more niched approaches like life coaching,
mindfulness coaching,
sports coaching, etc. And also there will be those which will be trying to support a very general, very broad arc of coaching. ILCA, for example, only focuses specifically on coaching language teachers, language professionals who want to take the elements of coaching which are specifically geared for the classroom, or not the classroom, whatever you want, Anish. Yeah. And keep having to say that. So if a language teacher, trainer, or somebody who calls themselves a language coach says, okay, I want to learn to become a language coach, then basically there are two paths that you can take. So you can learn with these large organizations if you want to be accredited. I mean, that's going to cost you, right?
Yeah.
Or you can say, well, actually, what I want is to support my learners with a coaching mindset. And then you can find an organization which is going to support you in a different way, in maybe a more niched way. And ILCA is there to be able to do that. So that's, okay. So what I'm saying, coaching is great. And you can approach from these large organizations. They're going to give you very deep knowledge, amazing overview of what coaching can do. Not all of it will be applicable for you. And actually, I had that issue of, it's a completely different mindset. When you get really deep into it, there's definitely transitional period when you're kind of, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. So in here, I don't know what's happening. Something is really weird, and I don't know what direction I'm going to leave at the end. And so it's quite a big journey. Okay, so and you can go another path where you just take those elements and say, I'm fine with that. Sorry.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add to that, Carrie?
Just that typically the people that come to us, I think it's important to note, it runs the gamut, but a lot of our ILCA community members, when I say community members, I mean, course graduates, course participants that then stay in our community, and also people that are interacting with us in different ways and just being a part of our ILCA community, coming to our events and consuming our content. These people are generally already highly credentialed, educated. A lot of them have master's TESOL, master's global education, like myself. And as Gabriella said, are not looking necessarily to embark on a full-on certified, coaching program. Now we do, and we have had a few members that once they graduate from our full course, get really oriented towards coaching and do go and seek that kind of training as well, because they just discover how much they love it. And where we see ourselves in that ecosystem between like full-on coaching certification and then like language teacher training, right? We always talk about the sliding scale, and ILCA's somewhere in the middle of that sliding scale, right? So we introduce core coaching concepts that are internationally recognized, very much so, and we cite these sources and we drive people and give them this kind of opening for exploration in that as well. And what we have taken is our own experience and credentials and expertise in these areas and applied it to a language acquisition context. I'll say that again, a language acquisition context, back in the room with the learner, or in the outside, as an extra.
I love how you guys are always referencing the outside. I appreciate that. Very inclusive. And I think that a key thing that you mentioned, Gabriella, is it's niche. We all have our own niches within all of this. And, and I think this is why the guidebook or some of the core values and methods that you teach within ILCA is what concepts or what frameworks can apply or help your niche or what you're doing. Yeah. And for me, I don't have that huge education background or anything like that. I'm like, I've been doing what I've been doing for the longest time. And my students and other teachers considered me a language coach in a different regard. But then once I found out what the world of coaching is, I was like, well, you're right. There's a lot there. And I'm like, you can really go into a rabbit hole. I'm like, okay, you know what? There are some points here that make total sense. I'm going to use these and how they apply to me and my business and the way I am going to approach my learners. And I'm like, that's good. That's a really good basis. I could go a lot deeper into it, but I've been able to take what I needed and apply it to my niche and how it, benefits my learners right now. Yeah. And it's a constant evolution. Also, I'm continually learning from the interviews that you both do, and more importantly, the conference that's coming up where language coaches can even learn more.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Before we move on to the conference, sure. I just want to say to Paul, I see his second question about will the book establish these standards? In fact, the book does have standards in it, and those are also on our website that you can go to, Paul, on our landing page and put in your email and download them if you want to go see that now.
These are the language coaching markers. That's what we call them. It's a set of 6 coaching categories that we put together with the ILCA board, and we did our background research, and we worked through them there and back. There was a lot of there and back. I remember quite a lot of intensive emailing and discussions. We should put this and how and specific wording, and that was pretty exciting, and because we felt this need to have a set of standards, which if you go through them, you have a look at them, and Okay, so this is what ideally a language coach should be able to perform, should be able to have as a mindset, should be able to accomplish. So it's with this in mind that sort of, you know, professional offering is there for the take for anyone who's interested in it. So it's up there, but I do go into details in the book, and there are a lot of case studies. What else are there? I've got some research which I did with a colleague, where we look into what exactly language professionals think of language coaches, language coaching. So that's a pretty exciting segment of research, okay? And also what I think the strength is that it starts, I think, 1492, the first mentioning of the word koch, which is actually a Hungarian word, and how that gets transferred into Oxford tutors one-to-one in the 16th century, 17th century, and then how it moves on. So there's quite a rich background to it, and then I go into how it blends parallel with education, and then how the two can kind of merge in the 20th century. So pretty exciting stuff going on there. So and lots of practical coaching tools that you can take away. So it's got this theoretical background, but it's also got a lot of practical, so case studies which Anish and Kerry have actually, you know, put into, but a number of other global language professionals have. And reading these experiences, I think they can enrich what is going on for you yourself. So you're going to be able to identify with quite a lot of what is in the book, hopefully. And then as a takeaway, you've even got, you know, a test to see, you know, how much of this coaching mindset do you have. So that's also exciting. And every single chapter has some reflection and some activities that you can do. So I think it's really practical, applicable, and user-friendly, reader-friendly. So that's I can't do any more kind of self-promotion.
Well, just in case, this is a reminder here, it's a comprehensive language coaching handbook, and you can also get it in person at the conference, which is what we're going to be getting into now. So why a conference and why London?
Carrie?
Yeah, I just wanted to go to London this summer.
That's it.
No, our kind of theme this year, our real kind of theme of the year on community is about local and global, right? So how to be local and how to be local in a global sense. So London really is a central point, a connecting space. For Gabriella and myself, that's where we first met as well. And yeah, we felt that definitely, without question, was the right place to hold this conference. And that, you know, we launched ILCA officially in 2019. We've hung on so tight through the pandemic with our learners. We've built this really kind of feel-good community through our board, through our community members with ILCA. And it's time. Things appear to be opening back up. And it really does feel like the right time for us to meet in person, be able to look at each other's faces in person, hug each other with masks on or whatever, and really delve into this and assess where the movement is right now and what these next steps are and what we need from each other, right? How we can continue to support each other. So that really is what we are trying to accomplish, is connection and support.
And I love your approach with that is, I don't have all the answers here, but let's all come together and let's just figure out where we're all going with this and how we can support each other moving forward in this ever-growing industry. I love that.
Yeah, and support each other in ways, you know, we've got a lot at this conference that's actually going to be addressing some really hard-hitting subject areas, like how much we get paid, as language coaches and language teachers. The thing that everyone suffers from and nobody wants to talk about openly, we're doing that. How to take those steps. We've got a real case study. We've got ILCA course graduates from the field program that are going to be presenting their experience as well with going through our program, and then creating a completely course participant led, organized, ideated pilot program to actually get out there and work with learners. ILCA doesn't work directly with learners. We support learners by training the people that will be coaching them. But this is like, okay, we're working with learners now, I guess, because our learners wanted to do that on our behalf, which is pretty cool. So yeah.
Right. Indeed. Yeah, definitely. And I mean,
celebrating Gabriella's book, that's another big timely point as well. Definitely.
No, but I mean, I think the way that we approach it is that we want to see, of course, the very, very rich tapestry that all these professionals joining will be offering through their talks, the workshops. We've got a number of different formats, actually. I'm just reading the comments in the meantime. It's like, wow.
Sorry.
And I think what is really cool is that we've got roundtable discussions. Also, we've got traditional kind of plenary talks. But we've also got workshops, and it's just a great potpourri of all the different elements that you can put into a conference in one day. It's all going to be there. It's a celebration of what we have achieved, and also looking forward. So it's a little bit of a retrospective, and also looking ahead. So we've got a telescope and we've got a microscope in a way. So we've got these two focuses, and I think that just shows the spectrum, and it's the way that coaching works, actually. So you zoom out and then you zoom in, and we're going to be doing both of those activities at the conference. And towards the end, we've actually set aside a little bit of time to gather all the rich thoughts. So we're going to catch all these thoughts in a kind of net, so to say, and we're going to display them. So there's going to be quite a lot of new and fresh ideas which have resonated with everyone who has attended. And we get this question, will it be online? No, we're not going to be recording. It's not going to be online. It's a one only. We are obviously going to be creating articles and writing it up and talking about it afterwards also. But we want this to be such a very special package for those who are there. And I'm really lucky that we've already got pretty good ticket sales. There's still room for some more. That it's very encouraging. I think that's also an amazing thing, that people who come together here are going to recognize each other, because there's this kind of ambience around language coaches, so that they just have this, not the toxic positivity sort of thing. So not that, but it's just this cool, calm, collected, practical approach to the learner who is sitting opposite you, or the learners who are sitting opposite you, and you're working with them towards their goals. And I think that's just quite a special thing to experience.
Yeah, I like how you put that. It's going to be very intimate, very personal, and we're going to be sharing so many of our own personal stories and just contributing to one another, and further, I think, solidifying a group of language coaches coming together and thinking, how can we further support and grow the industry. And I like how you put it, Carrie, being able to charge what we're worth and with the value that we're offering. You mentioning that, being able to learn about that. And I'm also excited to showcase how language coaches can also make their city their classroom as the industry evolves and grows, and part of this new paradigm of education. And I'm going to quickly jump into a question that I don't know who posted it, but would you say the age for someone can be language coached is getting younger? Starting at what age do you feel is this even appropriate? Not sure who
So
asked that,
coachee.
but
So the coachee. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
In a sense, yes. I don't know, Carrie.
I
Yeah.
believe so. I'm a big proponent of coaching children, and even with language, in the language acquisition context as well. I think the thing would be is the child being of a real kind of self-awareness. But in my experience with coaching, children oftentimes have more of that self-awareness, like they're there for it. Obviously, or I don't know how obvious it is. I mean, ILCA is not designed around
Young learners.
transferring, yes, thank you, transferring these skills for young learners.
Yeah.
We are more focused on coaching of adults, language coaching adult learners. But I do believe that from our courses and our programs, you will certainly find applicable tools to take into a learning space with children as well.
Sure. I mean, it's all about, and I do talk about this in the book. It's about being able to apply some small elements from a younger age in the classroom. So maybe it's just a question a week, and then you start building on that. Maybe it's just one coaching tool that you use, something like a scaling, 1 to 10. And that's already increasing their awareness of how they feel, what they are experiencing, how motivated they are, what their opinion is, how they're understanding their own language learning journey. And then you can start building extra elements to that. You may be using coaching techniques at the beginning of every lesson, which means like 2 or 3 times a week, maybe, or whatever setup you have. So when you get to teenager age, where their metacognitive faculties will be higher, so they're just going to be able to process the question that you ask them.
Right.
It means that you can get a bit deeper into these coaching processes with them. So you'll be able to do maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes of coaching, not with a full class maybe, but in a one-to-one, if you're an entrepreneur, you're working with your private student, then that's totally go situation at the beginning of a course, for example. So they signed up to a program, and you're going to say, well, I'd like to try something first. I like to do a bit of coaching, if you don't mind. So you always have to ask for permission. And then if it's a yes from them, they understand the concept, then you just go into it, and it's a wonderful experience. And with adults, of course, you can do like I do full 90-minute coaching sessions. And it's amazing, really, the depth that you can get into and how much more you're going to add to I do corporate courses, and there you usually have a 45-minute coaching session. That's how I do it. Then we have all the trainings, and my teachers do their teaching, different languages, and at the end we come together again and have some coaching, and I can see the arc, so I can see how much they're taking away from the course. And if I don't ask, I don't get that rich feedback. The teacher doesn't learn about what they have done, and the learner doesn't learn about themselves either. So it's very important to reflect in the beginning how you're planning, and at the end how you're looking back on what you've learned. You deepen that learning, and then you can move on at a completely different level.
Absolutely.
And I want to say this, I want to plug this book, The Mindful Education Workbook. Okay. So for me, we've talked before about how, and this is by Daniel Rechtschaffen, and there's a book. So this is a workbook, and there's a book that goes along with it. And you can see it's very well loved and used on my part, because we talk about how people come to language coaching with their own niche. The thing that really led me into language coaching was a focus on using mindfulness in language learning sessions, right? That was my gateway drug into language coaching. Really, that sent me down the rabbit hole. And this workbook provides a beautiful foundation as well for working with young learners of all different ages, and it scales them. But the activities in here around building mindfulness are the same as coaching. And so that's why I said I am a huge believer that coaching concepts, the younger the better, to get them in there. And like if I were going to start out and found any kind of a new language school that was focused on young learners, and I think about this just because I'm a crazy entrepreneur and I'm always thinking about what I can start. And there's, absolutely a huge focus of what I would design and put out in the world would be that. Would have language coaching embedded into any kind of curriculum for young learners in the language space. So
beautiful. Yeah, no. It's interesting. My buddy Paul, he works with high school in Japan online, and they always get instruction and homework. And it strikes him that, coaching would possibly be more valuable for them than just simply assigning homework. And he's dealing with a huge classroom, and then part of it's like in the training. Do their teachers have the training to even implement some of the homework or tasks that Paul's giving them? And can that be done online, or how do you do that in a large group? Gabriella, what would be best advice for Paul to possibly introduce this concept to his high school? Is it, okay, give Gabriella a call. Have her go to Japan.
Please. Yeah, I'm very happy to. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think first step, of course, is to be very familiarize, yourself with the coaching basics, and then you can move on from there. So it's difficult to implement something if it's not 100% certain that you can work with those skills and competencies, whatever. But I think one of the main things is that you need to let go of it. So as Carrie said, this unschooling. So what we have in education now is it's not about learning. It's learning, unlearning, and then it's not even relearning. It's unlearning what you've learned. So unraveling the thread that you've had in years and years of teaching fabric, and seeing what kind of new threads you can bring into it. And maybe you're going to get a completely different color, a completely different, richness of that kind of language acquisition fabric, so to say. So that's pretty important, I think.
I will add to that, we've specifically worked with foundation course participants that were in fact their professional context was in working with public education systems abroad, with young learners, teenage learners, if you will. And what Gabriella, going back to this thing of unschooling, yes, also what you can pull in, I think we need to zoom in on that a little bit, because oftentimes when you're in that kind of a language acquisition context, there are some very structured, there's structured oversight. There's things like course syllabi. There's standards that are aligned with the education system. So in our experience of working with language professionals that are grappling with these things, they're having to take those things into account, and then they're having to find the space within that, between the lines, to insert coaching concepts. And it's that flexibility, which is what I personally absolutely love about the kind of training that we give to people, is because it's so flexible. Take it. Here's a million tools. And if you need to talk about, or you're integrating how that you are going to use this in your particular context, we're here for you. We've got a whole community there for you to do that. But it really is about, getting those concepts in there, seeing where they're useful, seeing what kind of feedback and reaction. But
absolutely. And sometimes it's just really asking the right question at the right time. It doesn't take extra time away. I know it's always a time issue. How do I, get the coaching into the lesson?
Right.
We've got so many things that we've got to do. We've got the syllabus, we've got the, the curriculum, we've got the standards, we've got, all the expectations at the organization, the institution, and, at multiple levels, lots of pressure. And I say, well, if you don't have time for one question each lesson, then that really that really is that's a no-go situation. You don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, seriously, it is possible to apply with groups. Absolutely. If you can ask one person a question, I think that the main thing is being transparent and learners only sharing feedback or any answers that they have that they want to. So you can't force someone into, John, I want you to answer this question because I know you've got problems with this one. Can you tell me how difficult you found this grammar test? You know, you can't put people, sorry, Anesh, I'm going to do this one. You can't put people on the spot in this one.
I love it. Plug.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. But you can say, you know, I'd like to ask you how you felt about the grammar test today. If you can discuss in pairs anything that came up, and then I'm going to ask you to share. And it's got a completely different way of approaching, you know, because these can sometimes unleash some pretty strong emotions.
Absolutely. I appreciate you mentioning, number one, the right question can make all the difference, even if it's just one, and also making it timely.
Oh,
you know, and in front of, if it's in front of other people also, you know, sometimes it's nice just to take someone aside and say,
absolutely,
you know, I did this group. I'm going to wrap up here before we ask everybody, go to the website and register for the conference July 2nd.
Yes.
But that right question and the right timing of it makes such a huge difference. And when I do these trial lessons, I've experienced a different kind of experience with my students when I do ask that right question, and how they just feel so comforted, supported, and also feel in a safe space where they can answer. You know, it's like, forget, what did you learn today? It doesn't turn into like, what grammar point did you learn? But it's like, I actually learned that, you know, I have a little bit more confidence than I did before. Or, you know, I learned that not every stranger is going to be rude to me when I talk to them on the street. So it's amazing some of the different takeaways that they take, and it's not English related.
No.
And so
it's always what Carrie said it the best. You know, it's everything around the language learning, not the language learning itself. So I'm always quoting Carrie, which is kind of weird.
I love it. We should all quote Carrie. Using language simply as a tool to break barriers and build bridges.
Oh yeah. If you want to use big words,
there you go. Yeah, no, I like that. So the conference is going to be in London on July 2nd. It's going to be an epic event. What more details can we give people?
Well, the website, I don't know if we've got the website.
So our website displayed. We've got a website, we've got a YouTube channel. So, you know, in terms of connecting with us, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. All the things we do, we post on there after. A lot of people like that. But if you go to the website, you'll have the link to get on there. I believe Anesh has a special link for people as well. You can get a discount to the conference if you're feeling drawn to come to that.
I believe, if you don't mind, do you mind if I share the actual website here?
Sure.
I don't know what you can see. Okay, so now you can go. Let me get rid of this question here. So you can go to the website, register to attend, and just click there. You can see 53 days left, people. The countdown is
very excited
on. And the ebooks, workshops, membership, the courses, everything is all there. And so definitely attend the first International Language Coaching Conference. Come meet us. Oh my goodness, there I am. Ian will be there. Ruth will be there.
Definitely, amazing.
Sam, Vicky, Leslie.
Yes, very nice, lovely. And of course, we're doing plenaries with Carrie, but we're not up there yet. But you can download the full program, so that's available, obviously. So we do have a program. Quite a lot of things.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for taking this time to chat with me on my first ever LinkedIn Live. And I'm so glad I could be with you both to talk about
Thank you, Anish.
something that we bleed, which is language coaching, and where this is all going to go is just very exciting. And thank you both for your continued support. And let's continue the conversation and see you in London.
London.
All right.
Yes, yes. Hope everyone can join. Thank you very much for being
Thank you
here.
all. Much love. Stay on the screen, you two, and I'll just end the broadcast.
Okay.